Hello.
So Philip, we're good to start.
Hello.
Okay, who do we have
Hello.
on? Councillor Duran and Councillor Beck. On WebEx. So I want to introduce our new Chief Administrative Officer, Eleanor Mohammed. She's here this evening just to listen to the presentations for the two applications. And Valerie Doherty, deepest sympathies. I'm your father. I'm just heard of it. So sympathies for myself and for myself. And before I go I'll introduce the councillors to my left, to your right, Councillor Tweel, Councillor John McAleer, to your right, Deputy Mayor Aaron Yankoff, to my right, to your left, Councillor Trevor McKinnon, Councillor Kay, Judy Kay, Councillor Justin Mater, and to my extreme right, to your left, Councillor Kevin Reyes. As I said, two are phoning in tonight, Councillor Duran and Beck. Plus, we have some members of our planning board here. I see that Bob Kenny is here. Bob, is that the only one? Shannon Murray, she's coming by WebEx, so she's online. So before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. Two applications water lots. Stores is here at 2%. Presenters are Dockerty and team, Kip de Valley Duck, and we 40 Riverside Drive. Zilk is the administrator of department contact for this, and he's coming by WebEx. Chris McDougall is here along with Nasby Bowen for the components of this project. So with PEI COVID-19 public health guidance, COVID-19 will remain with us for the foreseeable future. So the province has removed from population health measures and restrictions to where individuals assess their own risk based on a number of factors, including health and vaccine status and that of others, and type of activity or event that they are attending. Some measures are no longer mandated. Individuals may choose to continue following certain measures to protect themselves. Back to in-person meetings at this time. In addition, residents still have the option to participate via video conference. And we do have Sean who's participating by WebEx and two of our counselors. And the meeting is also live streamed. So it's on YouTube. City of Charlottetown is our address. So if you don't see it tonight, or friends that want to see it, they can just go to the archive of YouTube, and it will be there. Their video link is www.charlottetown.ca/. And as I said, all the councillors are here except one I didn't acknowledge, Councillor Terry Bernard. It's a reason why we may become heard. Said, as members of the public present, Senator Penny, no Deputy Mayor Hancock, briefly go over the order of events.
Thank you, Your Worship, and welcome everyone, Mayor, Council, residents, staff. It's great to have everyone here. I just wanted to go over just housekeeping rules. Most of you have been in many public, so I'm sure you already know the routine, but just so we all know that each presentation, there'll be a presentation by staff and by the applicants. And after the presentation, then we can open it up to the general public, give you an opportunity to speak. We ask that you be mindful of time, and we'll set the timer for 5 minutes. And we'll start first with the members here in the room, and then go on to anyone that's on WebEx if they want to ask questions. Council may also have an opportunity to ask some questions for clarity. But at this point, we're not here to make any decisions. We're just here to listen. Just a reminder, obviously, when people are speaking, to be respectful of their time, maybe put your cell phones on mute so that there's no interruptions. And a reminder that any written submission must be received on or before noon on Wednesday, April 26th. And I would like to offer my thanks to all the residents that have came out this evening, and those who will provide feedback in the next coming days. So I will now turn it back over to His Worship to call the meeting to order. Thank you.
Thank you. Hancock, so come to order. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Okay, so we need an approval of the agenda. We have two items. Two items again are water lots and 40 Riverside Drive. Moved by Councillor Ramsey, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hancock. Favor, just raise your hand. Okay. So first, before we open the floor, as the Deputy Mayor stated, we will have the presenter for the first one, the water loss, Mr. Alex Forbes, and then WebEx by WebEx, Robert Silk will do the second presentation. Mr. Forbes.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, again, just to go over this application, this is an application for a site-specific exemption, which is Appendix C in the zoning bylaw, and it's dealing with certain exemptions that we make for properties in the city. So this is to permit the floating structures uses on the water lots and the water lots zone commercial at the southerly terminus of Great George Street and Prince George Street, or Prince Street, sorry. And the PIDs are listed there. You will recollect that in 2021 and 2022, we dealt with temporary use applications, very similar applications. This one has a few nuances that I will point out, but a couple of these floating structures have been approved in the past, and the structure has been put in place in regard to how do we deal with these type of floating structures in Fairland Town's waterfront. So in order to proceed to give a permanent approval for this particular applicant, we needed to make amendments to the zoning bylaw and the official plan, and they were approved in November of 2022 to deal with water lots. Water lots are a unique feature to Charlottetown. Water lot is a lot that was created prior to Confederation, and it's a legal lot that extends into the water, and people have developed rights pertaining to that. So here are the two properties that we're dealing with. So over here, this little property here, this is on the Cork property. This is the Corking Cask, and that was the first project that showed up on the waterfront some years ago. It was a relatively small, low-key little operation. As we go through this application, there's no changes on that particular property. It's the same entity that's been there a long time. The other part of this project is Peaks Key, which is this area right here, which is in front of the restaurant here, and here are 4 floating structures or cottages. And over in this location, it's not that entity there. I don't know what that is, but they're proposing, this is new for this application. The council hasn't seen before, a new floating structure in this little area here, and that's Al's building right there. So just so for some background, we had to deal with getting these provisions in the official plan and in the zoning bylaw to properly deal with development on these particular lands. And so right here we're dealing with the provisions that are in the official plan. So this is the waterfront zone. Over here is the water lots that show the prolongation from these properties, the legal use of the property and meets and bounds are there. And over here is the zoning bylaw provisions, and there's 2 components of it. The water lot commercial. Water lot commercial is where you would intend to have some kind of a commercial use. And then there's another designation called water lot open space, where we don't anticipate having any development. So this is, again, just the dimensions, the Corking Cask. This is on the Cork property. It's 24 and a half, approximately by 40 feet. So over at this location, 1 eating and drinking establishment, 1 marine office building, 2 ramps. This property, because eating and drinking establishments in the zoning bylaw, you're entitled to a liquor license. So if this was approved, they could apply to the province to get a liquor license. And again, it's about 1,000 square feet for that top. So again, just to recap, the 1,000 square feet for the Corking Cask property. There's presently no signage on there. We'll work with the developer for some limited signage so that if they want to identify that property moving forward. I'll explain my mea culpa right now. Instead of Peaks, Quay, in my east, I call it Peaks Key, so it's the same property. But for those that are familiar with the waterfront, that is the floating structure that is down in the water, and And you can see, some of the businesses that are there. There's a number of different little, eating and drinking establishments on the floating structure. There's some craft, beer place, coffee bar. So, the square footage on the main floating dock or structure down there is approximately 5,625 square feet. There's approximately 80 square feet of signage, that is existing there now on various businesses. This is an interesting point. There are float homes that are in the water, that are down, on this property. Those float homes, the 4 float homes, are not regarded as tourist homes. They do STR, those various float homes, and we will be working that into the development agreement on this property. But they are not what is typically regarded as a short-term rental, and it won't run afoul of a short-term rental bylaw because it's a different use than a home. Float homes were never intended to be for people to live in, and they're not taking away from the housing market. Is why we brought it in. The other location is there is the new dock location on the west side of the town's ice cream property. So this is where the new component of this application comes in. So the square footage of that dock is approximately 2,000 square feet, and they're proposing 3 buildings. And again, here is the all of the main floating dock that's out in front of the restaurant. And this is the little one that is over beside the cows. And these are the entities that have historically been there. So you get the 4 floating cottages with rooftop decks, 5 eating and drinking establishments, 1 marine office building, 3 water sport rental buildings, 2 ramps, outdoor seating area, float homes to remain in the water. That is another point. As a part of the criteria in the zoning bylaw, that question is asked, are they going to be there year round, or are they going to take them out? The applicant has indicated that they will stay there year round. Again, they will have the opportunity to apply for liquor licenses, and the float homes, which are again different than a tourist home, we will be reflecting that they can continue what they've been doing down there, and they are listing them for rent. So that is my overview of what this application is for. We're here this evening to hear from the public. The applicants are here. The whole team is here from the marina. If there's anything specific that I can't answer, I would defer to them. But that is the overview of the application for the water lots. If there are any questions, I'm here to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, just before you go to the floor, just remind that each speaker, we do have a time rate in front of you. We'll be given 5 minutes to speak. Since this is a public meeting, we ask that before speaking, you give your name, your address, your street, your ward if you wish, what municipality. You don't want to go too specific. And so whatever feels comfortable with you, please use the mic. We have here in the middle of the room. Those joining us via WebEx, and I don't think we do have anyone joining via WebEx, so we're going to deal with that. And if your name is called and you do not have any comments or questions, please mute your mic for anyone that's coming by WebEx. So the mic is open. This is a public meeting. It's being recorded, and as I said, it will be City Charlottetown YouTube channel. First person. No problem.
My name is Alice Kirk, and I live on Admiral Street. And I want to speak to this. My first comment is about how it was advertised, because I heard about it briefly on CBC last week, and then I've basically been trying to find out about it ever since. It says there's a notice was posted on the city's website, but I've been watching for that, couldn't find it. Finally, I phoned City Hall today. They told me it was tonight at 7 o'clock. And she tried to find it on the website and didn't find it. So I don't know where it's posted. For that reason, I would like to have an extension of the period for written comments, because I can write up comments before noon tomorrow. So that's one thing. I have a couple of points. My main point is what about public access to the waterfront in Charlottetown? When Paoli's Wharf was built, many years ago, there used to be access there for, there's a few parking spots and kayaks there. There was also access to the beach at the cove there. That was where the annual polar bear swim was. People were walking the beach. That was all taken away, first with the building of the Paoli's Wharf, and then the developer basically owns the cove now, which I understand, saying it's illegal. It's called a water lot. Some people look on it as a cove, but I guess water lot predates Confederation. Just because something predates Confederation doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea, building out into the water. I wonder if that is a contradiction of the provincial requirements for a buffer zone, not building into the buffer zone. I presume you guys have looked into it, that, and I do, that is a question. Yes, so with this new development in the other area, again, to me, that seems to be restricting public access. And I guess that's my main question. Is there any intent of the city to have anywhere in Charlottetown where people can walk on the beach, launch kayaks, that kind of thing? That's my question. So it's double points: the conflict with provincial land use provisions about a buffer zone. What is the water access for the public? And can there be an extension for written comments?
Yeah, if I can take a stab at a couple of them. I'm not exactly where it is on the website, but it is on the website. I mean, I can. I know, again, you have to navigate the website. It's on there on a daily basis. I think it's in under meetings. If you get, I got a nod from my colleague in the back, so that's where you would find that.
Your City of Charlottetown employee couldn't even tell me where I could find it. So
Right. Yeah.
I looked under events, news.
Right, yeah. I'm not sure who you spoke to. Again, and I understand the importance, but the requirements for the city are to post in the Guardian. I mean, people challenge the fact that the Guardian is an old technique, and we're required to post letters to everyone within 300 feet of the property, which would have been done. So whatever we do on the website is, like it's additional to the notification. On the issue of the cove, I think I know the cove you're talking about at the far end of over near the condos, the yellow condos that are near Harborside. Is that?
Between Paoli's Wharf.
Right, Paoli's Wharf, exactly.
And the yacht club.
Right.
Is that?
So, yeah.
So now it has great big floating docks in it. They've totally blocked the access to the beach.
Right. So the issue with the water lot is that they literally own us. They own it. We have no control over it. We get expropriated presumably, but expropriation is something municipalities don't typically use. But I won't speak on behalf of council, but it's all about property rights, right? It's the same as any kind of a rezoning. It's just an extension. It's highly unusual that we have this situation and people are exercising their rights on them. So that's a couple of your.
The provincial requirement.
Oh, so the bottom line is that these are all floating structures. They can move them. It's the same as a marina. It's still reached to the marina use, which happens in every city everywhere. So there's nothing permanent here. These are the floating cottages are actually regulated by the federal government. They're deemed as vessels. So there's a whole lot of jurisdictional issues here. And the city spent quite a bit of time, effort, and energy to make sure that we actually did maintain control of this area, because there's 3 levels of government involved in various aspects of it. So these amendments that we brought in last year were intended to protect the waterfront. The waterfront commercial is just basically reflecting where commercial uses are now. The waterfront open space is to protect views, planes, and generally indicate we're not looking for that type of development in those areas, and they're restricted. So we were working with Basically, I guess the cards that were dealt with, those water lots exist. People have private property rights on them. They were exercising them. And these new amendments were brought into place so the council could oversee and approve what they deem as acceptable on those water lot properties.
So I guess my big question is, what about public access? Is that just something you guys just don't care about?
Sorry, I do have an answer to that as well. So the public access component, I don't know if you're familiar with the Eastern Gateway Master Plan. So the Eastern Gateway Master Plan is down on the old events grounds. And so the city has a fairly significant plan there to realign Water Street and to provide access to a fairly significant section of the waterfront in that locale, and biking through there will be better in the long run. So that's where the access to our waterfront is actively being pursued.
Okay, so that would be like boat launch and people being able to walk on the beach and that kind of thing?
Again, we have a plan, and you know, these people here will dictate as to what shows up there, because there's budget, you know, water requirements, but the plan is indicating that's the intent, and a significant green space down there. There has been some controversies in Victoria Park because it's a very busy park. People are used to the use of that park. They don't want necessarily uses showing up in the park that haven't been there historically. So this location is intended to offset that, to make it a much more active place where people can interface with the waterfront.
Yeah, that sounds great. When would you anticipate those changes would be occurring?
Dr. Amsgrove, there are accesses to the water at the end of York Lane. Again, that's a parking issue. There is access at the end of Colonel Brady Drive. That's again, a parking issue. And then we do have Showtown Yacht Club, we pay a fee to launch. And I understand what you're saying.
It's very accessible.
Yeah,
Carry a boat like a couple of blocks
Right.
down here, so that's a non-starter.
and that's the thing, the access down off Co-op Diamond. There's the beachfront there, but again, it's not an easy model. So as part of this Eastern Gateway plan, we will be shutting down Water Street Parkway Road, where you have that crosses by the Friendly Pharmacy. There'll be a left turn going, take you over to Grafton Street. That will open that up for access to the water. So that's a longer term plan that may not be, so what you're asking for, and for many times, the access to launching a boat or a canoe.
It just feels like it's getting less and less accessible, so.
Yeah.
So those are really all things I wanted to say, and I appreciate your answers. And I look forward to the Eastern Gateway. Actually, I mean, I've seen lots of plans, but I look forward to it actually happening.
It's on our website, easy to get to, just go to plans, studies and reports, and look for the Eastern Gateway plan.
Timeline as well.
Timeline, it was initiated back in 2012. Here we are 11 years later, but we're slowly getting to the next steps.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew Mouse. To this. Great. Good evening, Andrew Mouse and Prince Street. I'd like to first make a comment regarding both projects and just respectfully request that the city of Charlottetown allow at least 1 week from this public presentation, because you are recording this. And yet all comments have to be in by noon tomorrow. And as I've been told, this video recording isn't even available until tomorrow. And other municipalities in this province give their public a week to look at the material that's been made available, to listen to the presentation by Mr. Forbesgate, which you just really can't appreciate from reading stuff on paper. There might be comments and discussions tonight that might trigger other comments and questions, and allow, you know, in the spirit of true public engagement, I would really request that council consider extending these deadlines, because if we're finished at 9 o'clock tonight, You now have 15 hours, most of which many people will be asleep. So there's no one to call and ask for clarification. And if you really want public engagement, could you just please consider extending these deadlines? Other municipalities in this province do that, and I think that says a lot to the degree of their respect for their residents. So that would be for both of these projects, the other would be a major project. It's massive. And it just gives people time to think and put things together. So my comments on the floating dock, some of these come from my experience having had a boat down there many years ago when the marina environment was considerably different. It was a quiet cottage community where people spent their day quietly without 3 sound stages around them and their exits blocked by cruise ships and access to their boats blocked by small businesses. What I might say, what I have noticed walking down in that area is that these structures float, which means the tide comes in, tide goes out, and the tide comes in, and the tide goes out. And when their exhaust stovepipes are, they might be high up at high tide, but at low tide, they're almost at eye level. And I had to point that out to some people while they were constructing that because the fan was actually blowing horizontally in my face. I said, you might want to redirect that. And I know we have the rule about smokestacks about 6 feet off the ground. Where's ground level? Is that low tide? Is that mid tide? Is that high tide? I've been down there a lot, and the air circulation is getting a lot worse because you've got high buildings and sometimes you've got tall cruise ships, and the smoke sits and you start choking down there. And I don't know what the rest of these buildings are going to be producing as far as exhaust goes, but it's not great. I don't know if these buildings are going to have to be required to provide washroom facilities. It's a dire situation down there at the best of times, and with more and more of these commercial enterprises serving food, where are the public washrooms and who's providing them? Because the last I know, you've got to maybe get in to the little, last I was there, rather poorly maintained washrooms under the Peaks Quay. There's nothing for the boat. Some of the boaters have washroom facilities on board, some do not, some dump their tanks in the harbor, some use proper dumping facilities. It's getting very crowded. The current extension, which is where the old gas dock used to be, which is right outside the ramp, that has made it extremely difficult to offload a boat as a trailer. You used to be able to let the boat go and then tie it around immediately at that corner while you pulled your trailer out, and then you could go back to your boat. It's become more and more difficult to do stuff like that. In the event of a hurricane and a mass evacuation, the more and more you build there, the harder and harder it is to get boats out of there. The best boat hole in Charlottetown is that little nook to the west of Cowes. Every expensive boat during one was in that spot. The biggest, most expensive boats go there. So these owners, they might be here tonight, and it's their business, and they can certainly run their business as they want. As a marina, it's not functioning as well as a marina from someone who used to be there. But from the public extent, if you're providing these kind of food spaces, I think you need to also be providing washrooms, and you need to be looking at air pollution from all the smoke and exhausts that are there. It's creating a different atmosphere down there, and that's up to the city operators to determine if that's what they want. And how precedent setting are these kind of changes going to be? Are we going to lose our nice waterfront walks and turn it into going up?
Andrea, could we do it this way? You would present both
No,
or speak to both?
not right now.
Okay.
I made my opening comment about extending the deadline, but like,
Okay.
so those are my comments.
Just one second. We're just getting input. You're getting input from the floor first.
So those are my, I stand over.
Okay, so we want to go back up on 40
Can I get some response? Can I have some responses to my questions about what from facilities being provided and the exhaust from sort of.
So as Councillor Twill was trying to say that we are working out, we worked out a plan, just one second, Councillor. Worked out a plan with CDC, also with the operators of the quartermaster, I still call it quartermaster Maureen, its team, CDC as it said, through Parks and Recreation, and will allow Councillor Twill, Chair of Parks and Recreation meeting, make that announcement. Go ahead, Councillor Twill.
Thank you. It's a good question, Andre, with respect to the washrooms. Currently, we had two washrooms was an issue. We were faced with the dilemma as to what we were going to do to provide more washrooms. Do we build another building down at Federation Landing, or do we try to take advantage of the potential that the current washrooms have? And the result is, with the two, we were able to expand, reconstruct 3 more, so that gives us a total of 5. The construction is already underway. Council meeting last night was passed unanimously by City Council. And we believe that the 5 washrooms will be able to accommodate the number of people that are down in that general area. It's a pretty popular area, as you know. And gives us time to plan it for the long term. Where we're not being reactive, we can be proactive. So I hope that answers your question, Andre. That gives us, we go 2 to 5. And we believe that partnership is a good partnership for CADC, the City of Charlottetown, the business community came together to come up with that formula. I hope that is.
And just to add to that, there are washrooms up in Peace Key. And we do have washrooms over in Founders Hall, so we're trying to build that volume as much as we can. You ready?
So, that's great that there's some extra public facilities going on. I'm wondering if there's any bylaw regulations for restaurants that need to provide washroom facilities for their clientele. Because the marina, with the expanded square footage, it's creating new real estate in downtown, floating dock. Are there any requirements for the proprietors of those buildings that are serving food and beverages on a semi-fixed floating premises? Are they going to be required by the zoning and development bylaws to provide the amount of washroom facilities that every other restaurant, I'm assuming in the city, has to provide? Toilets, hand washing facilities? And how is that, when this gets, again, I'm looking at precedent. We started with something quite small. There's one restaurant around the corner, and then this area grew bigger and bigger. And it's just a question of at what point are these commercial enterprises going to be required to fall under any other development requirements for restaurants? Or do they?
Mr. Forbes, Forbes.
So this is a site-specific amendment, so it's up to council to determine what they are comfortable with at this location. Those washrooms that have been alluded to, they're designed to provide that access for people on these floating structures. So it's not a whole lot dissimilar from we have a marina down there, which is even bigger than this operation. So people are on boats every day. They're using their boats. There's environmental requirements that they have to deal with. So again, they're using the public washrooms that Councillor Twill just alluded to. So, but it's all a part of, there's an approval process here. That's why it's vetted. It's a very robust process. It's the most robust process we have in the city to get an approval. And then I would defer back to the fact that these recent amendments to the official plan and the zoning bylaw were designed to ensure that these things were reviewed and vetted very well and discussed before final approval was granted. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I appreciate your comment. I'm starting to see, first of all, we have washrooms that are being provided for the public. You know, the city's been encouraging people to come stroll along there and enjoy that environment. And I've got no problem. I think it's overdue for public funds to go towards public washrooms in a public space. What I'm kind of questioning is, should public funds be going to provide restaurants for private commercial endeavors? I don't know, and I'm just kind of wondering, because if this, let's pretend, so does this grow and become less of a marina and more of a giant floating food court? Possibly. At what point does the owner of the property suddenly become responsible for supplying all the amenities? It's hypothetical.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Parks and Recreation, you want to deal with that one?
Again, what we're trying to do, there, Andre, is be as creative as we possibly could. You know, there's a lot of people in that general area, down the food courts, down the entertainment. It was pointed out, Peace Key has washrooms on the second floor. So in terms of this general area where there is a lot of people, we believe that the 5 washrooms, you know, it's a formula that we've come together with the other stakeholders. And we believe it's a good formula. We've signed a 5-year agreement, gives us time to assess and evaluate what will be required for years to come. And again, as I said earlier, we're trying to be proactive as opposed to being reactive. We think this is a great addition, and it's very accessible. That's one thing that we wanted to emphasize and accomplish. I think we've accomplished that. So, like, we're going to find out rather quickly how it works. We think the additional 3 washrooms, I think it's going to be a marked improvement to what's already there. So, you know, it's a good partnership, and I think we're going to be able to. I'm hoping that we can build more partnerships with all the stakeholders.
So, and this is information that will go back to our planning board meeting, and Mr. Forbes will, I'm sure, enlighten us about what are the actual regulations of restaurants, cafes that have to provide those facilities. But with a partnership with Mike Knocker, who is here with the Shawtown Harbor Authority, with Founders Hall, now with Peace Key, with their partner down in Quartermaster Marine, as I still call it, and also CADC. I think that, you know, it's about providing more access to public washrooms. We hear a lot about out in Victoria Park that we don't have enough accessibility to washrooms, but we're working towards it. Go ahead.
No one responded to my question about the exhaust. We've got smoke.
That's Mr. Forbes. Mr. Forbes.
Yeah, smoke from pizza ovens, exhaust pipes. Where's this current smoke is 6 feet from ground level. Where do you measure ground level on a dock? Because 6 feet can be right in my face when I'm walking by the pizza oven exhaust out of the tide.
Yeah, the issue of, that's no different than every wood stove here in the city. I mean, people have wood stoves, they're burning wood, the next door neighbor has an air exchanger. Right? So one's burning wood, they're exhausting, you know, wood exhaust, and then the neighbors complains that they're trying to bring in fresh air. So, I mean, you know, these are just, these come with the entities that are down there, and they're, you know, ancillary to the uses that are provided. I would just offer the one last comment in regard to one of the goals of the waterfront is to provide a lively environment for people who are using the waterfront. The trail system is a component of that. The owners or the proprietors of the marina are here, but a lot of the traffic that is utilizing their facility, they're one of 2 people. They're either people that are using the marina and they're getting the services off the floating dock, or they're just walking by. I don't think it's a destination. I don't think people decide. Maybe some people do. You can't generalize, but you know, what's occurring there is it's the traffic that's walking by it. So they're there anyways, and then they're taking advantage of the opportunity to go down on the dock, as well as the boaters who are qualified or whatever. So it's there to enhance the experience of being on the waterfront and to provide those amenities, including the washrooms, for those people that are just walking by anywhere. So you never going to be a floating dock structure. Thank you.
My name is Marilyn Sparling, and I wanted to just ask if there is a limit to the number of clients or seats in the floating restaurants. With the approval, if this is approved, do you know the numbers of people that will be involved in being served all the time?
We do have an engineering plan for, the capacity of the dock. I mean, the bottom line is that people are not going to stay. You can't get it's all designed around what is on there now and the seating capacity that's there. People are not going to stand on the dock. They can't, they're either going to take the food and leave or they're going to stay on the dock. If I'm incorrect, I'll defer to my,
That's not being expanded. What you're doing is, this approval is to do with what has already been set up there. It's not expanding that beyond.
there's two docks that are, one dock is not being touched, the other dock is marginally being expanded, which is the one from Peaks Key. And then the other dock that's by the cows is a new dock.
Large and
Yeah, we have those dimensions, and as a part of the approval process, they need to provide an engineering assessment that the structure, what it can hold in regard to weight, and the occupancy on that is a component of that.
so numbers you're not sure of yet. The other thing I just wanted to comment about in terms of the washroom discussion, which I think is important. There's a lot of people can eat in those restaurants all along there. If last year is an indication, and 5 washrooms, I think is really minimal. Referencing things like Founders Hall is great. However, Founders Hall is closed a great deal in terms of it's not open all the time. It's not open at the same time as the restaurants are open. So they have to be accessible washrooms, not just available in the closed building. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Very good point. And it is the marinas of Charlottetown. Peter, do you guys want to add any comments to the discussion, or we wish to leave it to Mr. Forbes? Okay. Okay, thank you for your comments. Next one.
Just have one question for Alex. Is there something that we can do? I know we've done it in the past, in terms of what Andrea had pointed out about extending the deadline for folks to have a little bit more time. I know we've done that with the OP, and is that something that can be done and we can still work within the timeline for planning board?
That's the issue. These timelines are all designed to get it back to planning board in a reasonable timeframe. So those reports need to be finished by Thursday, out to the board on Friday. I mean, council can do whatever they want to extend these, but they will not be getting to planning board. So all of these processes are set up to start at the planning board, then to go to council, get a resolution, to go to a public meeting, and they can be extended. But there's the bottom line is just for people looking for approvals, it could be another month.
I think, Alex, just to CAO may differ, but if we looked at an additional, just until the end of this week to provide those comments, and that if council had to hold a special meeting to approve, discuss this matter of water lots, I think that could take place. So we'll have that discussion first thing in the morning, if you don't mind. Okay? And there'll be something sent out to provide some information. Mr. Conner.
Good evening, City Council Mayor. My name is Mike Cocker. I'm CEO of Charlottetown Harbor Authority. I just wanted to make a few general comments about the waterfront, the marina operators, and the attractiveness of what we're trying to do to make it a lively working waterfront with a community lens, looking at all the issues. Your timeline conversation, Mr. Mayor, is appropriate. I did notice the the advertisement that was posted in the paper in the Guardian, that's where I picked it up on last week. And did find it online, so I can appreciate the fact that, timelines are an issue. However, I did see the notifications out there well in advance of the meeting, prompted by anybody at city council or anyone else. I would, just like to talk about for a minute the marina operators and what they're trying to do from a private enterprise. We spent probably close to over a year working with Mr. Forbes and the planning department, various consultations of waterfront lot development and zoning to where you come today. And I think I would certainly applaud the efforts that where Mr. Forbes is coming from. We looked at it very aggressively and very in detail for the new members of city council over the last 24 months to come up with a plan that actually really engages both a view of commercial lot development as opposed to community keeping, I guess, in the waterfront area. So, I just want people to know that that work has been done. It was a significant document, it was a significant consultation that has taken place and public meetings as well. That's already been presented. So I don't want to start delaying the process more and more and more because this has been going on for about 2 years now. The marina operators, what they're doing, I think is a fantastic attractiveness to the waterfront. We have invested from our own organization in the areas of the waterfront by enhancing the size of the boardwalks, going in and around the waterfront, making it more attractive for people, making it easier for people to walk around them. We've invested in Founders Food Hall Market. The marina operators are investing in their facility to make it more attractive. And every time and every summer for both communities and tourists alike. I just want to say that and put it in perspective because I think it's important to realize that we don't do this to kind of overpopulate anything. We do this to try to make it to the best of our ability with a community lens for all the public to enjoy. Now, there's always both sides of viewpoints. I get that. However, we are looking at, or not we are, we have looked at a lot of these areas of concern, and we try to incorporate them in all of our decision making. I just wanted to thank you for your time and your effort, and we certainly support the waterfront application by the Charlottetown Marina.
Okay, anybody you want to close up? Just Mr. Forbes. Just
Andrew Bass. Just as a clarification, my comment around extending deadlines applies to this public meeting for the water waste management plan, for public meetings in general for this council. If other municipalities in this province can manage to schedule, and as pointed out here by the gentleman previously, the council's been working on this with input from the proprietor for over a year. One would think that council on any project could wait more than 15 hours to get the public input. When you go to the trouble of putting notices in the paper or easily or not found on the website, and you're trying to get the public out, and you're making a recording of this meeting for people to watch, but it won't be available until after the deadline to comment, and you're doing it to reach out and engage with people, I really would hope that council would take it to heart and look at your scheduling and maybe reach out to other municipalities in the province that seem to manage just fine by allowing a week for the public to comment after the meeting, so they can look at the material, think about it, come up with ideas, maybe raise some questions, and then come up with a thoughtful, considered input onto the public, onto the question that was presented to the public by council for their input. Giving us 15 hours from 9 o'clock tonight seems a bit of a short straw. It was a general policy for this one, but for meetings in general.
So I have Ellen in the corner on Katana, so it sends out the information. Ellen, this meeting, the planning board meeting was held April 3rd, correct? With this full agenda? Was this put up on the website? Okay, and was that meeting a public meeting, live stream, and it's archived on our City of Charlottetown YouTube channel, correct? So just so you know, there was that meeting that was held, and I think that meeting, every year, I think was 90 minutes at least. So we covered that. I believe the proponents were there at that meeting. I know Enwave Energy was there, so I know we are trying to be as open, transparent, and accountable, but I know that April 30th meeting, because I'm looking at the minutes right here, actually, Ellen, you sent there 2 copies, so I think both copies probably went to the public. Just wanted to put that in the case. Okay. But the public, but the planning board meetings, correct me if I'm wrong, Ellen, all those public meetings of our Heritage Board, Planning Board are open to the public. It was open to the public. I just wanted to point that out. Okay. We want to go on to the next one. Deadline, 40 Riverside Drive. We do have Robert Zilk. Robert Zilke is on WebEx. Christopher Dougal, Nazmi Lowen are here with Ed. You want to present, Robert?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Can everyone hear me?
Mike has to say this. But he has to be yours. Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. So tonight there's a site-specific exemption for 40 Riverside Drive. The site-specific exemption is basically there's 3 components to it. One is to increase the maximum allowable building height in the M1 zone from 12 meters to 35 meters. The other exemption is to extend the maximum allowable height for rooftop mechanical, which would be the smokestack, from 3 meters to 38 meters above the maximum permitted building height. The smokestack from grade, I believe, is 50 meters in total, and you'll see that in the preceding elevation drawings. And then the third exemption is for the setback from the rooftop mechanical from 3 meters to 2 meters from the roof's edge. And this is to permit a new waste to energy building. So the subject site is highlighted in blue, as you can see. It's just north of the Waterfront Gateway Master Plan. So it's just north of that, lying outside of the area. As you can see, the actual surrounding lands are all zoned M1, which is light industrial, same as the subject property. So the proposed variances, and this is basically a variation to the bylaw, but going through the site-specific exemption process. It's basically to allow for public comments and input, and to basically bring this application through a public process itself. Instead of just going through the regular variance process, anything that's more substantial than what a variance would permit would basically make sure that it would be attended through to the site-specific exemption, which follows the same process as a rezoning application. So the purpose of the application is to replace and enhance the existing, or to create a new waste energy facility to replace the existing waste incinerators on the subject property. The smokestack servicing the new waste energy facility is considered rooftop mechanical equipment. It is proposed in total, and I believe, again, this is from grade to the tip of the smokestacks, 50 meters in height. That exceeds the maximum allowable height in the M1 light industrial zone. That's why this application is going through the site-specific exemption process to elicit public feedback. This is the proposed site plan. The proposed new waste energy building is just located just south of the existing structure there. There are a few items or structures that will be removed on site to accommodate the new facility. This building also resides above medium flood elevation levels, considering that it's beside the riverfront along the Hillsborough River. And this is the elevation that was sent by the applicant's consultant. This is the view from the south. So this is basically be standing on the water looking towards the building. And as you can see, they've included an elevation with specific height measurements from grade to different parts of the proposed building itself. So you can see that there's various step backs on the structure itself. And when you go up through the different elevations, you can see at the top there are 2 stacked about 50 meters in height. The applicant also proposed or sent a revised elevation drawing showing again the view from the north. So this would be standing on the highway, kind of looking from the side towards the waterfront. And they provided a reference of buildings in the city that go about approximately the same height as the building. This building does exceed and is going to be one of the largest or tallest buildings in the city if you include the rooftop mechanical equipment, i.e. the smokestack. But as you can see there in the upper right corner, there's various tall buildings such as the UPI campus that was just approved, the Delta, the Holman Grand, and of course St. Dunstan's Basilica. These are also concept renderings of what the proposed building would look like from various views of the subject property. And in regards to regulations for development adjacent to any water bodies, the property basically has to, the development officer can approve a lesser setback if the applicant provides an approved watercourse wetland alteration permit. That is in accordance with the Environmental Protection Act. There are criteria to be met, and when the applicant did submit an EIA assessment, we received that, and we also received approval from the Provincial Minister of Environment, Energy and Climate Change pursuant to the Environmental Protection Act. According to the Manager of Provincial's Environmental Land Management section, the Minister exempted the proposal from the existing moratorium on shoreline development, as well as signing off on the environmental impact assessment, stating that it met the criteria of the Act, and that was submitted to our office. And that's the end of the presentation. The applicant is present and can also answer any questions. I'm on hand to answer any questions from staff's point of view. Thank you.
You wish to?
Yeah.
Is there good? Okay. Just introduce yourself to please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris McDougall. I'm here to represent EIA Systems. Thank you for having us. I appreciate everyone's time here tonight, so we'll try to keep it brief. I know that there could be an opportunity after this talk. We get that time. If I could get Philip and crew to load the presentation. There is some duplication between what we have and what Robert has, so in the interest of time, we'll probably flip those slides from pretty quickly. So what we're going to talk about just very briefly here is more about what we're motivated by, why we want to do the project, and why it's important to the city. In short, the project replaces an existing 40-year-old end-of-life waste energy recovery processing system with a new processing facility. The new facility will enable Charlottetown to decrease our oil usage by taking on additional waste from the province, and thereby reducing our carbon emissions and avoiding greenhouse gases from methane created by the decomposition of waste in the East landfill. Modernized facility will feature new building structure, as Robert had shown us, on the existing site with equipment capable of doubling the current waste energy recovered, thereby reducing the province's emissions from landfill and waves emissions from peak use of oil. We'll be able to continue the long-term relationship with Charlottetown, providing a solution that aids for their CDP plan, decarbonization, energy transition, and climate resiliency. It'll support a path for a sustainable energy future with predictable cost that provides a path to supporting energy efficiency improvements in all of our municipal buildings. It renews a large-scale storage of renewable thermal energy tank. I think everyone's kind of driven by the property and seeing the state of our tank. The tank has been posed to be replaced. We've just been waiting for the footprint of our expansion to get settled first before we can determine that the tank's going to be rebuilt on the same site. It promotes a common sense approach to current and future waste reduction strategies and provides reinvestment in Charlottetown in the economic tax base, jobs, the consumables and materials and services that we procure, and energy dollars sustained in our community. I'm going to back up a little bit and tell you a little bit about us. I think there are some new counselors here. There might be some additional staff that don't know us. I'll be fairly brief in my comments. At EEI Energy Systems, we started district energy here in Charlottetown around 1982 with the original energy waste plant. There was a significant expansion in the mid-80s, early 90s, and we continue to expand today. Today, we service 145 buildings in the city of Charlottetown, providing low carbon efficient district energy services, including the University of Prince Edward Island, the administration buildings, all of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital steam service. Do that through 18 kilometers of underground buried outwater lines and a 1.2 kilometer steam line. We have in our 145 customer mix many other types of customers. We have residential and seniors, schools, colleges, commercial, retail, sports, and places of worship. We have a very active footprint. And who are our owners and who are our sponsors? Our owners are Enwave Energy Systems. Enwave owns 6 energy systems within Canada, one located here in Charlottetown, a very large system in Toronto, London, Ontario, Windsor, community of Markham, and new development in Mississauga. Previously, they also owned 7 or 8 large district energy systems in the US. That system has been privatized with another corporate owner. And Enwave itself is owned by 2 investors, Ontario Teachers Pension Plan Board and IFM Investors. Ontario Teachers Pension Plan has 184 billion in assets, and IFM is owned by Australian Pension Funds. They have about 128 billion that are managed. Combined, just within their energy infrastructure portfolio, they have about 72.8 billion. And those investors and our sponsors are very keen and they're highly committed to financing this project. Just a quick overview on the site. You had seen some of Robert's photos before. The site, you can see the outline of the proposed construction area where the footprint is. The project has been many years in making. We've consulted with many groups. We've gone through many hurdles and many permits. And so finally, we're at a point where we can come to municipal council with solid plans under our feet and say we have a plan that works. Pass these specific exception. When we looked at this project, we needed a footprint for the building. The current site as proposed was the most difficult, but the most beneficial to Charlottetown. The easiest place for this building to land might have been along Riverside Drive or some orientation out in the spring area. What we found though was the narrowing effect along Transcanada Highway, Riverside Drive, extension of the building height made the corridor very unattractive. It also tended to block additional landscape views of the waterfront through here. So I convinced our senior executive board it was worthwhile to tuck the building over here in option 2 behind the existing structure, thereby opening up this viewing lane from Garfield Street, increasing setback and somewhat hiding the building behind the existing structure. In order to do that, we had consultations with province, with federal government, with fisheries, and every institution that could be involved. We consulted with them, and we've made our way through all their permit requirements, and it was a good due diligence process. It helped us build a better plan. I think Robert might have shared the view on the right. It's just basically what the site will look like when we're done. I pointed to work here. So there is shoreline infilling and reinforcement along here, which will help us with our climate resiliency plan, mainly to do with sea rise, 2050, storm surges, wave action, those kinds of things. This portion of our plant is actually going to be decommissioned and taken down. It's a small extension to the building we added around 2002. And we also added a little bit of land in here for fire access, firefighting services, after consultation with the Shawfell Fire Department. If you were to stand today at low tide out in front of our back property, you would be looking at this embankment, and in the future, that embankment will be reinforced, and you'll see the extension of our building back here. Robert's gone through this and did a great job. I think during the April 3rd planning committee meeting, there was some confusion around heights of the building. So what we did, we actually added the heights in the different areas as opposed to just showing the mass building in 3D rendering. I can go through these numbers, but it will be, I think, in your design patterns anyway. The other thing we did look at is there seemed to be some interest on how the building compared to other buildings in Charlottetown. So we looked at the building, we looked at the overall height requirement of around 35 meters. And then we compared it to some other buildings, such as the Gannett Games building at 35 meters, the Delta at 36, Holman Grand at 37, and of course the St. Dunstan's and Sylvan Spires. One of the things we did miss actually in our bylaw review is we weren't aware that being less than 3 meters from the edge of the building was would require a special amendment. So I know Robert has marked as 2 meters from the building edge. That was just an arbitrary thing that some engineer put on the plans, and we can move that within reason. One of the nice things about where it is, it's actually 2 meters from the back side, water edge, side. It's not 3 feet. More renderings again, similar to what Robert showed you. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on those, but please stop if you have any questions. Everybody wants to know what's in the box. They don't want to sit here and go through all the engineering details, but very briefly, what you have here is the floor where waste haulers would actually drive in and they would end up tipping their load into a bunker area. There's a crane that typically loads waste into a hopper, falls down into a furnace. That hot flue gas travels up into a very, very tall boiler, and then it goes into air pollution control, and then eventually out a fan and out a stack, actually just showing here, but it's in this form. It's a very simple process. It's actually not much different than we already operate today. When you look at a modern, energy efficient waste energy plant, this is what you're going to find: world class, best achievable technology. We looked at some of the shared values that we have. We looked at some of the things that Charlottetown has done in planning, and you've got a great plan. When we look at your community vision, sustainable future, you made the statement that Charlottetown needs to quickly reduce community greenhouse gases and air pollutant emissions while securing reliable, affordable energy locally, increasing efficiency energy, and creating jobs with economic growth. I couldn't have wrote a better statement for this project. It applies, it's our mantra, and that's what we endeavor to do. When we look at some of the other planning that you have, you've already planned within your planning for your energy sources for 2050, and I'm not sure about the overall numbers or the mix, and all that. As things move forward, things change. But we're ready, planning, and we're gonna make this happen within council's decisions and reasons. Sorry. When we look at some of your other objectives, we look down to things like 5 and 6, where you say develop strategies to entice greater use of high efficiency heat pumps, thermal energy storage, such as our thermal battery, our storage tank, solar PV, rooftop retrofits, plus new construction, and then increased collaboration with efficiency PPI products to encourage and to greenhouse gas reduction and measurement technologies. We're ready to move, help you and achieve your goals. When I look at your objective for transition to clean and renewable energy in 22 and 23, you had support private enterprise and the shift away from fossil fuels. This project will divert another 5 million liters from Charlottetown of fuel oil use per year. The second one is examine the potential of large-scale, cost-effective thermal energy storage and renewable energy. Our hot water tank, as we rebuild it, is exactly that. It's a thermal battery. It operates every day of the year and supports the district energy system and helps level our load. And we're coming here to the end, I believe. When I look at your objective to foster sustainable community development, and I look at some of the points such as 27, where it says incorporate measures and technologies that are existing in new city zoning and development bylaws, development plans. That's what we lean on when we come in here today. We need your support. It's an important project. It's an important project for Islanders. The population growth in Prince Edward Island will see upwards of 218,000 people by 2040. Every one of those people generates currently 320 kilograms of waste. You know, today there's 50,000 tons of waste out there. We're taking half of it, 26,000 tons. If we don't do something, you're going to have 70,000 tons of waste out there, and our landfill can only hold so much. And we can do energy recovery in a safe, efficient, responsible manner, and we can solve a lot of problems. The remaining ones, 34, 35, 36, continue implementing sustainable initiatives, including those that help the private sector, promote common sense approaches to waste reduction and waste management, foster entrepreneurship, innovation, emerging technologies in the growing clean tech sector. Absolutely perfect. And that's it. I want to thank Alex and staff for all their hard work in getting this here tonight. We've been talking generally in broad terms for a while now, and it's great that we got. Thank you. Open the floor to any questions.
Stay up here. Can we just ask the floor first? If you wish to ask any questions to Chief Planner or Mr. McDougall.
Still Alice Kirk. Yeah, so I just have a question. One of the things, so as far as I can tell, it's not going to interfere at all with the Street Gateway project, which you were talking about earlier, because that's on the other side of the bridge. But when you showed the view from low tide, it looked like there would be area to walk on the beach. So do you, and then another view just showed kind of almost like a concrete wall. And we know all this talk about regeneration after Fiona, talk about natural, beaches that are better than rock walls for maintaining the contours of the beach and stuff. So I just wonder if you foresee that there would be a place that people could walk and that would be continuous with other walking opportunities.
I foresee that there's a place to walk. I mean, we're not taking very much shoreline. We have a small expansion into what is considered a tidal zone. What you see there for sure today will exist in the future.
Thank you.
Just for the public record, just keep your name and that's all we can do.
My name is Marilyn Sparley,
And I actually have lots of questions, and I don't think it's appropriate to be asking all of them right now. But I wondered, is there a way to, one, get that presentation that you showed this evening?
And if you wanna, I don't know, you can either go through this process or you can tell us directly, we're open to that. Just leave your name and contact details and we'll reach out.
Yeah.
We will upload it to our website. We can do that too.
Do that? Okay. Yeah, I'd just like to sort of look at it in more detail because this is the first time I've seen it. And obviously there's a huge cost to this upgrade. Where is the funding coming from?
So there is no municipal or provincial funding within this, it's private equity. We developed a project with a low rate of return for 25-year project life. We do have about $3.5 million in funding from Environment and Climate Change Canada to develop the project and to demonstrate greenhouse gas savings. That funding is based on a certain project substantial completion date. If we don't complete the project by that time, funding goes.
Okay, and I'm sure part of this has already been answered because I know you've gone through a whole lot of environmental reviews and so on, the idea of the project. But you know, obviously you need to build large rock walls or concrete walls to sort of, you know, maintain the structure and make sure that the sea does not overtake some building, which is going to cost kind of money. That is going to change the whole water course on both sides of this outdoor property. Has there been any work done to preserve that aspect of the shoreline?
So we do have additional reinforcement in there and we did study the shoreline. So we do have full EIA completed on the impacts to the environment, including flora and fauna and fish and habitat. And as part of that, and as part of the water course alteration permit, we do have a program where we go out and enhance a separate area in Hillsborough River. Those agreements for those developments are being negotiated now and they're not executed yet, but they will be executed before we get final project.
Are you negotiating this with?
Well, we won't say until we have those agreements ready.
Okay. And the other thing, because you'll be able to cut down significantly the use of oil as part of your ability to create hot water and send it through a town. What exactly, how are you going to base your costs to the customer, if you like? Because right now it's based on the cost of oil, and I've been trying to find out the formula that you use, because obviously the cost has been going up exponentially in the last year. And there seems to be an impossible, I mean, I haven't been able to find a way to figure out how the costing is and what's going to happen once there's less oil used. So how do we renegotiate the cost? Because it's not just the private, you know, churches or condos that might be using it. It's also the taxpayers are paying for the hospital, UPEI, the government, all the government bills. So it's a huge bill for the taxpayers and covering for your premiums that are being sent to your shareholders.
So part one of your statement is that everyone's billed based on the price of oil, which is not completely accurate. We do actually index most of our customers, depending on when they signed on to the system, based on the energy fuel mix. So we base load with waste, which we get a processing fee for and a handling fee to make it smaller, cover the energy and sell the energy back to the province at a preferred rate and avoid landfilling it and extend the life of landfill. The next base fuel is wood, which we support forestry, sustainable forestry operations. And so we actually buy the wood and that cost goes into the energy formula mix. And then on top of that, we have peaking and backup capacity for oil. And so there's an oil cost that goes into the mix. So it's not just oil. When we cut down our oil use from 6 million liters to 5, cut it by 5 million liters, we're down to 1 million liters. Obviously, there's a benefit to our corporation in that we're not spending as much money on oil anymore, but something has to pay for the product. And there's some return. So our assurance and our contract agreements are that our existing customers are not going to pay any more to finance the project. There are internal returns based on fuel oil savings that we can use to finance the project. If you are having trouble, if you're a tenant somewhere that subscribes to district energy and you want to know more about how you're specifically billed, just reach out to us and we'll sit down and actually have a session with you so that you can understand your bill.
She sent emails to try and set up some kind of meeting so that we can investigate that,
Okay.
but I never got an answer to that. So maybe
Send an email
to whom I should send
Yeah.
it to. Okay.
Chris, do you have your business cards here?
I do not, but I would get mail.
Okay, and so you're all watching the lights, so I'm gonna be watching the lights for you.
So just saying, I wasn't sure, sorry, I was Andrea, Prince Street, Town. I wasn't sure, does the timer stop when the answer is being given? Does that heat up for 5 minutes as well?
He was answering the question, so it's not.
But not always. It doesn't matter.
We're gonna be flexible.
Okay, so thanks for the presentation. Again, at public meetings like this, it's great to have a personable kind of reach out to the general public to explain what's going on and let us absorb it. I did manage to lightly skim your environmental assessment report. So is it my understanding this wasn't required, but you did one on your own? Or is it a requirement?
We started the process voluntarily, I'll say, but in the end, I think it was just a thing. In order for us to get through some of the jurisdictions that we needed to, such as environmental notions and the provincial assessment and the climate plans assessment, it was just good practice.
So one of the things I did notice, I think, Mr. Silky also mentioned, is that this project was favored with a ministerial exemption for new builds on shoreline. Can you explain why that might have happened?
We had already started the process before that moratorium and the political event happened. We were well into the process with going forward on the watercourse alteration permit. And as part of that permit, we just, there are developers out there that literally fill out a piece of paper, pay a fee, and they're good to go. We didn't do that actually. We actually consulted with many groups, and we actually went through the EIA process and had to develop a plan for it.
One thing I'd like to bring to council's attention is that in the draft official plan, there is also a restriction or limitation on development near waterways and high buildings. And from some of these examples, this is an extremely high building in an area which it's not zoned for, and that's where, is that correct? Is it, it's something is not higher than it should be. So I'm just curious, I put that question to council.
That's a good point, but as Mr. McDougall mentioned about the ministerial exemption, we've been in the hopper for how many? 18 months. It's been there for some time because we've been trying to get that water tank refurbished. It sits in front of the building, it has the skin off it, and that's going to be part of this renovation, correct?
What I did notice is that you said in your presentation that the current building is end of life. And
Not necessarily the building, but the equipment itself. The equipment, if you could imagine, is similar to a very old 40-year-old car. You can continue repairing it in perpetuity, but at some point, when you're welding in the frame, you're trying to keep this thing going every month. It's time to retire the asset. And so the existing furnaces that would be the core engine of this energy points process, they're tired. And, I guess to a point in your maintenance cycle where they're difficult to maintain, and sometimes there's even, they're just not efficient and not doing their job as well as they should.
current building, you could repurpose the current building for your new structure.
It will, so the entire building will remain. The site plan, when you look at the current building, where the furnaces are, they're very central to the building. And so what will happen with the furnaces when the time comes, and this plant is up and performing as expected and successful, we'll decommission the furnaces and remove them. The space within the building, we could have more alternative energy uses for clean energy, that'll occupy space.
Because I did notice on your diagram, again, this goes to no new buildings on shoreline, it's an eroding shoreline. Your diagram showed that you're servicing UPEI, other areas. So you've obviously got connector pipes. I'm curious why you decided that you wanted to put the building on an eroding shoreline that's at risk of flood events. That's gonna need massive piles to support it, I'm sure. And could it not have been located somewhere else where it wouldn't be such a dramatic impact on the shoreline and the aquatic? I noticed in the environmental assessment, some of your changes are irreversible. Rather than fix it somewhere else, you're gonna be irreversibly damaging areas there. And those are kind of important areas of waterway, there's all marshes. Could you put it somewhere else? Less in your base and still connect
Yeah.
the steam line and still fit in the city's official plan with not building large buildings on shore.
I think it's a question that everybody wants to know, and I'll do my best to answer it. I think there's three parts there. Part one is, could we have built it somewhere else? Physically, you can build something anywhere, it's fine. I don't know if we wish to build it. The reason it's there is because it's the central energy hub for the district energy system. The infrastructure's there, pumping is there, controls are there, staff are there, and we're centralized there. So from a business and economic standpoint, and to rebuild the entire system and plant somewhere else for this infrastructure would be phenomenal, and there wouldn't be a budget, quite frankly. Part two is the shoreline and the erosion, and so I think there's been several studies done. Province has got some very advanced studies done on what our shoreline is predicted to look like, especially around the year 2050, sea level rise. So we've looked at those plans and we've consulted with our engineers, and we've made appropriate adjustments for resiliency with both sea level rise, storm surge, and wave action. So I think for sea level rise, we've done appropriate planning. And then I forget the third part of what you were asking, but
Somewhere that's your base, like.
yeah.
Well, if it knows where a river, or it's a heritage river, it's a massive group trying to protect that. City has an official plan of not building this. How tall is this?
It's about 110 feet.
Give me another building in town. Who's
Tall as a Delta.
tallest Delta up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were my main options
Yeah.
there. I would note that when they were doing some of the pile work by the Delta, they couldn't do that many times a year because of storming. Have you run into that?
So within the environmental protection plan, there are controls and mitigations in there to help. For instance, there are times of year when birds migrate, and we have to keep a certain walk for birds that we move in, especially bag swallows and things like that. So those controls are in there, and I do remember the third part. Now you were talking about piles. We do have our engineers with us, and they're very good at what they do, and I'm sure they can engineer around that.
I live downtown and downtown, and I've heard smaller 2-3 story buildings driving piles for
Yeah.
weeks, never getting any face on it. So I'm just curious if there was an engineering spec on that. I'm sure there must be, but
Yeah.
I've listened to piles for weeks and people just give up.
Yeah, fair question. So just one of the things we didn't talk about is actually the procurement cycle that we have. Us as owners have commissioned preliminary design that takes you to about 35+% of design. And then we issue it out to qualified design build firms. They'll finish the design in a competitive procurement process. So when the process is done, we would be better suited to answer your question on how much piling is required.
Chris, Just a question, on the residential piece, did I understand the GPI and QEHs, and is there a residential piece as well? People, are there individual homes being heated?
Not individual homes, but several complexes, rooftop condominium, lots of condominiums around Charlotte, actually. There are some smaller, multi-unit homes that would have been connected back in the eighties when when the Crown Corporation actually owned the assets.
Councilor Turner, that's a question.
I'll just introduce myself, Councilor Joseph Jarrett, Ward 2. Thank you, Chris, for your presentation. Chris, my question is just more of curiosity. The increase in height, the request for the increase in height, is that purely for mechanical purposes? The diagram showed large mechanical infrastructure within inside the building. However, I noticed in the design document, it was windows, and it would appear to be windows.
Yeah.
So is that for aesthetics, or is there office? Is there anything above a certain level that is there, or is that just aesthetic?
The windows are purely architectural to let natural lighting in. There is some allowance for office space on what I would call the water side of the building. So within that extension to the side of the building, we would have our control room and our operations center there, as well as staff facilities, washroom, changing rooms, and meeting rooms.
But for the most part, the 30-meter height, I think is what it is.
Yeah,
Is
they're 35.
35 will pretty much encompass mechanical top to bottom. Is that
Yeah.
right?
100%.
Great, thank you very much.
Councilor Twill.
Thank you for your presentation, Chris. I was intrigued by some of the questions that Andre had asked. And from a philosophical or idealistic perspective, if you weren't at your current location, are other buildings of this magnitude, regions that you mentioned, particularly up in Ontario, are they all built on water store lines, or any of these facilities built industrial?
Traditionally, when you look at energy and waste plants, and actually I should have brought a really neat graphic of where some of these buildings are built. There are two of these in downtown Paris. You will find them on the River Thames. You'll find them. So generally, they're where you can attach a district energy system to the back end of them to get a really efficient plant. Electrical power production is pretty good. You'll get up in the 30% efficient range. If you can attach it to a thermal hot water energy system like we have in Charlottetown, you can get up much higher than 80%, 90% efficiency. And so you kind of need that heat load. If you go to the outskirts of the town where you're in an industrial park, yes, you can process the waste, but you're going to end up blowing the heat up the roof because you have no heat load in there.
No, it's just, we're talking about the height of the building, and I certainly appreciate all the plan that's got into this much more contemporary.
Yeah.
Moving away from what's been done traditionally. I very much appreciate that work that's gone into it. It's just we value our shoreline.
Yeah.
We want to protect our shoreline as much as we can. One of the comments made here earlier today, you heard of us access to waterfront. You did mention that there could be a walking facility. Did I hear that wrong? Or did you mention
I
that?
think the comment was that the shoreline as it exists today at low tide, there's not water to the shore. It looks like a nice sandy beach, and it is.
Yeah.
When construction's over and our silt fence comes down and such, I mean, those things will be there. We don't necessarily promote people walk around the perimeter of the property to the shorelines. If they wish to do that, I guess that's up to them.
Right. Just one last question. Is there an opportunity for multiple dwellings to private buildings to be able to tap into the system now with the new expansion, new opportunities to take on more customers? So is that possible now? Will all this expansion allow for that, more people to be able to, tap into this.
Yes, but what we're really trying to do is keeping within the existing loads we have at the existing number of megawatt hours and the send out breakdown. We really want to switch our fuel from fuel oil to more sustainable energy recovery. If additional customers come along and if additional megawatt hours come along, there is some moderate room for growth. Some of that growth will be us organically supporting customers we already have, such as any expansion around the university or the hospital or the city itself. When new customers come within the city and they call us up and say, hey, we want to go beyond district. There is economies of size. It's very difficult for the construction costs to generate the revenue to support any amount of model that rate. And so if the right opportunity comes along, yes, we would look at them, but I think those opportunities are marginal. It's really about, you know, trying to switch some of those megawatt hours from fuel to something more.
My last question, I talked to the, facilities on being built in industrial parks. Can any part of this facility be built in an industrial park? Maintaining what you have there now, is there anything that could be constructed in an industrial park?
Is that possible, or is that just?
Not
very fun. I mean, when you look at what happens at this facility on a daily basis, we have short haul waste transfer trucks that collect curbside, post recycle, post non-compostable, materials that no longer have a home within WasteWatch. WasteWatch's done an excellent job. It's around figuring out what to do with all the products we consume. And when there's absolutely no home left, there's no further reuse or, and it's meant for landfill and do energy recovery on those materials on the bus. Part of those materials on the bus. And so those short haul trucks, some of the materials go through transfer stations such as GFL, or Grove. Same thing might happen on the Wellington landfill. And those kinds of activities are already happening off-site. Transfer stations, pre-sorting, removing of contaminants such as things that should be recycled on metal. We're not bringing those activities to the site because it's already being done off-site in the industrial type facility.
Okay, Chris, thank you. Chris, just looking at the Google Maps.
Yeah.
As you know, we have the wastewater treatment plant just south of your facility. In Dr. Hills Crook, that's the purpose of the eastern gateway going around the south side of the Hillsborough Bridge. And I know, Marilyn, you were asking about extending the walk along that beach, but when you get up to the crossing, the water crossing, it's just on the west side of that crossing, the causeway is the Del Rio Golf Course. There is a box culvert there, and that was the purpose of putting an active transportation pathway on the west side of Riverside Drive. And an active transportation pathway goes from Hillsborough Bridge all and parallels the arterial highway. Now, the third phase will take it right into the Mountain Brook Road and the arterial highway and the Federation Trail. So we're trying to get the traffic, active transportation traffic on that pathway. And I know, Chris, I think you've been around when it was talking to Maritime Electric, doing another part of the city. I think the engineers of the day would, and say today too, is that you look at your power plants, most of them are built down by close to the water sources, for cooling reasons and whatever else. But I want to thank you for your presentation. If there are any more questions, Andrea? Yes, we're ready to head. Look.
Thank you for your patience.
Your name?
Andrea. Nobody. Yeah, some really good diagrams, and one of the things I noticed with a lot of these kind of presentations is sometimes we have three-dimensional diagrams, and they kind of fade out once you get past the building, and they often don't have people or relatably scale objects in them. And I'm wondering if you could go back, as part of, future for a full package, because, we're sitting here, we're looking at a 3D model based in a pretty sky, and everything's disappearing, just to really help people gain a better grasp of the impact of that building, of that mass, of that height in that location. If you could just expand that lens and put that building in context in the shoreline that's there now, to scale to the other buildings that are there with some cars and people. And then I think that really helps the public and those of us that how high 35 meters, I couldn't tell you how but it gives you a better idea of what's gonna be there and the impact of the mass and the height of that building with the few different views. And I'm thinking with the graphics that are, at the fingertips today, that kind of diagram, it's not a small building in a neighborhood. It's as tall or taller than some of the biggest buildings we have in the city. And it's going to have an impact. You will see it when you come from Stratford coming over the bridge. All your cruise ships are going to see it. And
The cruise ships will be on the south side of things.
I think they'll be able to see it.
Yeah, but they won't be past.
No, they'll be able to see it. You'll be seeing this from quite a distance.
Well, I can see them, so they should be able to see me.
I can see them too.
But they are 12 stories above deck.
Yeah.
Much stronger, sorry, not stronger, but taller than what we're talking about here.
But I'm just saying for people, and just so that when you've got a building of this size, it's gonna create such an impact on the city and the city skyline and the harbor line and the shoreline. As just a little extra bonus for your presentation, it would be awesome to see that building into scale in its location.
I agree, and my first time here, we'll add it to our architectural renderings. And we'll help them by finding Fritz Allen's tallest person, so the building doesn't look so tall.
Chris, just one last question. 18 kilometers of hot water heating that comes from that plant, correct? Stretches in. And does that also heat the Shaw and the Jones building?
The Shaw and the Jones building, the previous former Fritz home,
That's the only.
the Confederation Center, Parish Court Hall, most of Kent Street,
City Hall.
City Hall, your police station, Eastland Center. Yeah.
Okay, just before we go, Councillor Toronto and Councillor Beck, any questions?
No, everything's fine with me, thank you.
Councillor Beck?
None for me. No, none for me. Very informative.
Thank you.
Motion on the floor to adjourn, second by Deputy Mayor Yanka. All those in favor? Meeting's over. Thank you very much.